This is Don't Hide the Scars, a podcast brought to you by PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, a nonprofit organization specializing in rehabilitation services and support for substance users and their families. Hosted by PAIN's Executive Director, Darren Redmond. Created by PAIN's founder and president, Flint Anderson.
Good morning, Darren, and good afternoon. This is the podcast coming from Don't Hide the Scars, and we've got podcast this morning that is a little different than what we do, and we would like to welcome Ina Sovsun from the Ukraine. She is a woman that is obviously battling the situation that is going on in the Ukraine, and we are proud and we are pleased to have her this morning. Good morning, Ina. We know exactly, well, we don't know exactly what you're going through, but we hope to get a better idea today of what you and the rest of your country is going through. This is kind of a little different from us this morning, since we talk a lot about addiction, but when this situation started to arise and things got worse, I started thinking about what happens to those folks that are dealing with mental health and substance abuse and those kinds of issues. So Ina, if you could just kind of start us off a little bit on what you are, what you're going through, and what do you think is some of the possible outcomes here?
So we are 12 days, day of war right now. We don't know the days of the week anymore. We just know the countdown for the days of the war. And it's still impossible to comprehend. Every time I wake up, I double check, like, is this really happening? Or is it not? Was it just a bad dream? Because just 2 weeks ago, we had our normal lives. The worst stress I was going through is my law is not getting passed through the parliament. But now it's a completely different reality. I haven't been able to sleep at home since the very first day of war. I was staying with some friends in the city the first 10 days. And then, for a simple reason, because I live in a high-rise building. So in case I hear the alert, I would have had to go down many floors to hide from bombs and missiles. So some friends who had a private house with a basement, they invited me to stay with them. And then I was staying with them. And then 10 days after that, they decided to leave the city. So I had to find another shelter for myself with some other friends in Kyiv region now. Again, a private house with a basement, so it's kind of easier to hide, because many people do not have enough time to hide, or they have to leave it to be staying all the time in the basements or in the underground stations, in bunkers or anything, because of those damn air raid alerts, because of the bombs falling on our heads. So I wasn't home. I did go home to get some stuff or something, but I wasn't able to see my loved ones. Like, the first thing I did when I heard the bomb exploding over Kyiv was I called my ex-husband and ensure that he would relocate our son to a safer place in the Western Ukraine. Myself, as a member of parliament, I couldn't leave, so I had to stay, because typically women would be taking the kids to safe locations and men would be more engaged in direct fight. But as I'm a member of parliament, it was different for us. So I didn't see my son since then. My boyfriend rejoined the army, so I have just sporadic contact with him. My parents left for the Western Ukraine as well, but then my dad came back to Kyiv region, and he joined the territorial defense unit, which was like, he's 61. His health is not very good, but he did that. And then for 3 days, we couldn't get in touch with him. So my mom was crying, and we knew that he was in the area where the fight is taking place. But then he got back to us saying that he's okay, he's alive. And now he's helping people evacuate from the area that is not safe, where it is possible. So I haven't been able to see my loved ones for all this time.
So, Ina, I want to, Darren Redmond here from Don't Hide the Scars. I want people to understand a couple of things. One, you are not from the Ukraine. You are in Ukraine.
Yes, of course.
People understand that you're not in university someplace 2,000 miles away, sipping your third cup of coffee. You're in the fight. Also, And we are just humbled that you would find the time to talk to us, and because you as a public official know how important it is that people in the West wake up and find out what you're doing, because you're not alone. You might feel alone, but there's a lot of us out there who want to do what we can to help facilitate the peace that the people of Ukraine, and quite frankly, the citizens of Russia want. That's what we're here for. I want to dive into the fact that while it's not about you, but you are a wonderful representative of the people of Ukraine. You're a parliamentary official, so you have a responsibility to your government, but you're also a mom. Walk us through that.
Well, that is the most difficult thing. So when my ex-husband relocated our son, and I wasn't talking to my son for 4 days. We were just texting back and forth, but I didn't call him. And I made that decision specifically. It was not just because I couldn't. It was tough on time, but also I knew that if I call him, I would start crying. I will start falling apart. And I knew I had to keep tough and to keep strong for my team, for my people. And that was my weak spot, of course. So the 4th day into the war, I was standing in the park and trying to get some grocery in the supermarket. And then my son called, and he just wanted to chat. And he's 9 years old. And he asked me, "Mom, when will I see you again?" And then I started crying. Not in front of him. I smiled and said, I'll do my best and all. But then we ended the conversation, and I was sitting in the parking lot for 20 minutes and just crying, because I don't know what the answer to the question of when I will see him again is. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, staying here in Kyiv area instead of going back to the Western Ukraine and maybe continue doing the same what I'm doing right now, which is talking to the people of the world, but having him around. I'm not sure, but what I know for sure is that what I'm doing right now, I'm doing for the whole people of Ukraine, but also for my son. Because I want him to be able to stay here, to build this country that we deserve to have. So that's how I feel. And also I feel, despite feeling so bad about not being able to see him, I understand that I'm actually lucky, because there are at least 50 families in Ukraine who lost their children. And then when I'm reading accounts of those families, I realized that, okay, we can manage this. Me and my son, we shall be fine, because he is alive, I'm alive. And as long as we both are alive, everything can be fixed. But then I was reading yesterday this account. So the Russians have captured the city of Irpin, which is just northwest of Kyiv, just 20 kilometers northwest from Kyiv. And they captured it with the idea of getting into the city. And they have basically been keeping people hostages there for 12 days. So people were hiding in bunkers without any electricity, without any heater. And it's winter in Ukraine, so it's rather cold. And people were trying to flee from that city. And the Russians opened fire into the green corridor, which they promised to keep for people trying to escape. And I was reading this statement by a man who said that we were trying to escape. They promised us that we would be allowed to leave. And then I suddenly just saw a bomb going in our direction. And then I saw 2 of my kids up in the air as high as this church. And now they are lying there both dead. And by the time I was reading that, he said that his wife is in the hospital, being taken care of. But a few hours later, we learned that his wife died too. And this is the kind of things that are happening all over Ukraine. There was this terrible case the day before yesterday. They bombarded a town of Korostin, just a small town in northwestern Ukraine. And there is 1 person dead and a 3-year-old child left without 1 leg. So when I'm hearing that, I'm just thinking that, oh my God, thanks God my son is safe. But those are the stories that are multiplying here in Ukraine, and those are the stories that I, as a member of parliament, as the representative of the people, I need to be telling to the world to know what kind of evil we are fighting here, They're shooting civilians. They're shooting elderly people. They're shooting the disabled people. They have, oh my God, they have got people in the mental facility in Borodyanka. They've been keeping them hostages for, I think, several days. People who are mentally ill, like seriously mentally ill, they have captured them in special facility, and they've been keeping them hostages. This is just, evil of like, I can't even explain. This is like Nazi level evil, what they're doing here in Ukraine. And it is my job now just to be telling that to the world so that those stories are not forgotten and are heard by the people.
Right. That's exactly what this is. You explain that perfectly. This is evil, at its finest. And it is something here in the United States that I believe, as much as we can sympathize and empathize with the people of Ukraine, we've never truly experienced that here in our country. But I do want to assure you, you have people here that care deeply about the Ukrainian people, and if we can just do our little bit right here in just allowing, or talking with you to come on, so you're able to get that message out to the viewers that we have, that is important. I'm sitting here feeling helpless in so many different ways, because what you said was, this has Nazi written all over it. And, and I'm still old enough where, I don't remember World War II, obviously. I was born, about 10 years after it. But I still remember my parents talking about it. I remember my grandparents talking about it, and that evil that just permeated all over the world, when that was going on. And that's what this seems like to me. It's, again, I wish there was more that we could do for you guys. I really, really do.
There is another parallel to the Second World War, is that at the beginning of the Second World War, the Western powers allowed a dictator to basically destroy an Eastern European country, and pretending that this is not going to touch upon the lives of the Western Europeans.
Chamberlain ran out of the plane waving that piece of paper. We have signed peace. We have signed peace. No, what you did is allow somebody to restock, to catch you napping, and to exploit the fact that you want peace and they're a predator. And this is what seems to be happening. And this is what's happening again. You're absolutely right, Ina, as usual, because this is what's going on. And it won't stop in Ukraine. They'll keep going. And then it's that old adage, right? We learned in school, Flint, they came and took so-and-so and we did nothing. They came and then took these people and we did nothing. Now they're coming for me.
Right.
And we learned this as children, but yet we somehow forget that and or ignore it. I don't even want to say forget it, because we know, people, not everybody, of course, but tend to ignore it. I want to talk a little bit. I want to follow up real quick, because you mentioned something that the war itself is deplorable, but the fact that you call for a pause in the quote unquote action, and you allow emergency corridors for young children and mothers and grandparents to get through, and all you're doing is shooting fish in a barrel. That as soon as people start to use these egresses, they're bombed, and they're just blowing people to death, to bits, as they are in these small little narrow corridors, quote unquote, when you look at the expanse of a country. Talk a little bit about that, because people don't know that that's happening, but it is.
It's actually just right now, I'm just getting a message from my team. There was another corridor that was promised in the city of Sumy, which is a regional center northeast of Ukraine. It's been heavily bombarded. It's close to the Russian border, so they entered like full force into Sumy. There have been many street fights. It's a lovely town, about 200-300 people, I think, and there were heavy fightings over there. And they were actually using the vacuum bombs close to the city of Sumy, which are not allowed to be used against civilian population according to
it's international.
It is a war crime, but they promised the green corridor, the humanitarian corridor, and just now as we speak, I learned that they opened fire onto people in that corridor again, and people are trying to escape, and those are people with families with small children, and basically the Russians are just holding them hostages in Sumy, then in Kharkiv, which is second biggest city in Ukraine that has been heavily bombarded from air from day one. It's my native city. I feel so much pain for the people over there. I was seeing bombs blowing up like 3 minutes walk from my school. I've seen with Kharkiv, it's probably like the worst example of them using aviation against civilians. And when I saw what they're doing to Kharkiv, I saw my brother, and he's a bit younger than myself, but he's 33. And I saw my brother for the first time since we were kids crying. He was just crying. He was sitting there and crying and saying, like, they're turning Kharkiv into Aleppo. How is this the reality that we are living through? And it's the same in Mariupol, which is southeast city in Ukraine. It's a port city on Azov Sea, and they've been holding like several 100,000. That's a big city as well. Hostages, and they're not allowing people to leave. I have a good friend who has a sister there with a 6-year-old son, and they cannot leave. They cannot escape. They don't have electricity. They don't have any heating, and those bastards are not letting them out. But you know why that is happening? Because the Russian army, they were all so proud that we have this second biggest army in the world, and it is so powerful and so strong, and we shall take over Ukraine in 1 to 3 days. We shall be in Kyiv 24 hours after the first bombs exploded, and so on and so forth. And then their military strategy failed. It has failed for several reasons. First of all, because apparently their very calculations were wrong, because apparently Putin is that insane that he believed his own propaganda. He did believe that there are many people in Ukraine who are waiting for him to come and liberate them. But now in the eastern and the southern cities, which are to a large extent Russian speakers, Russian-speaking soldiers of Ukrainian army are kicking their asses and pushing them further from the cities that they got closer to. So no one in Ukraine wants Putin. There is not a single person, well, maybe some freak, someone gone crazy.
Some outlier somewhere.
Yeah, but like no one. I'm getting messages from my former classmates in Kharkiv who are Russian speakers who've been living in Kharkiv all their lives. And I haven't been in touch with them for 20 years since I graduated. But they're all saying like, please tell the world that we want him out. He's a fascist and we just want him out. And they're texting me in Russian. So that, but apparently Putin did believe his own propaganda, that he did believe that people will be helping his army to get in. But actually people are doing the opposite. Just an hour ago, I was watching a video from a smaller town of Oleshki in Kherson region, that is southern Ukraine, the closest region to Crimea. And people, thousands of people over there went to the streets to protest against the Russians who are staying in their town from day one of war, because like really close to the crossing from Crimea, and they went to the streets to protest against Russians who are sitting there in their tanks and are willing to shoot at people. But people so much want them out that they actually went to the streets without any arms or anything, just to tell Russians to get out.
Right. That reminded me of Tiananmen Square.
Right. I was thinking, Darren, I was just thinking the same thing. It was exactly Tiananmen Square. Yeah.
It's so much like that. And this is just, so this is one of the reasons why Putin's strategy is failing, because the population is actually doesn't want them here. So they miscalculated that. They miscalculated first of all, the motivation of the people. They believed many people would just welcome them with flowers. They also miscalculated the resilience and the level of to what extent people will be willing to get engaged.
Yes.
Like I told you that I cried this fourth day of war when I was talking to my son, but I also cried the first day of war, not because of the bombs, but when I saw the huge lines in the military recruitment offices.
Right.
I was just looking there and I started crying. The first 3 days of war, 100,000 people in Ukraine signed up for the territorial defense units. We stopped calculating them after that. So I'm sure the number is close to 500,000 right now, but we just stopped calculating the numbers because it doesn't matter, because we have enough people who joined the territorial defense. People who used to be, I don't know, baristas in fancy coffee shops in Kyiv, people who used to be, I don't know, human rights lawyers, people who used to be in IT, anything, like everyone is just getting into the fight. We had the number that 140,000 men who will live in abroad, Ukrainians, they came back to Ukraine with a single goal to fight. Because, that is just the level of commitment that Putin is calculating. And because of that, their military strategy has not worked.
Right.
And because their military strategy hasn't worked, they are now using the only thing possible, cruelty against civilians. That is what they're doing right now.
Right.
Putin is going right out of the scrapbook of the 1940s and the 1930s. He tried blitzkrieg, it didn't work. And now what he's doing is he's doing atrocities to civilians while trying to go back and forth between a siege and causing duress to the people so that they will plead for peace, quote unquote. Well, it's not peace. It's like when I see people, and when I'm reading about this stuff, and you can tell I'm fully engaged in this, and my heart goes out to people like you, but yet I get strength from people like Sovsun. I get strength from people like you who stand up and fight. Because I hear people go, well, they want Crimea, just take it Crimea by the sea. No, these are people. These are generational people who are living in their homes. They are not a bargaining chip. It's not Bitcoin. These are people. And the fact that you're doing this, and there are people out there shedding blood, and there are people, like you said, with one-legged children who, you know what, they're going to bandage that kid up and they're going to get back into the fight and hopefully get their kids into safety.
Yeah, I saw that the other night on the news where they're showing the Ukrainian citizens signing up for the military, and to me it gave me a sense of pride for the Ukrainian people that these men and women are actually signing up to go in, to fight, to recommit, because you know what, evil is not going to win here. Okay, it's just and it can't win here. And I wish we could supply you with the 100,000 soldiers ourselves, to be honest with you, because this needs to end. This needs to end. I don't think the world is going to have to go through another World War II again. It just can't happen.
Yeah.
You know what? There is. Thank you for this support. There are actually Americans who now joined the international battalion that was created, and some of those people, because I gave several interviews, they were texting me in different social media, be it Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, and they said I am a soldier. I want to come volunteer and fight on the Ukrainian side, and that is not happening to Russians. The only people who they can get are some some crazy men like themselves. But there is actually something that people in the West can do. We are not asking for troops on the ground. Well, if people are willing to volunteer, it's there.
You're not going to say no.
Yeah, we're not going to say no. We're extremely grateful and so on. But what the West can do, there is a possibility to do something to help us in this war. And there are three things that we're asking for. First, two are about sanctions. So we do know that sanctions help, because sanctions are aimed at what? They're aimed at creating a situation where Russia cannot sustain this war anymore. So the tougher the sanctions, the less opportunity Putin will have to have the money to sustain this war. And that is why we are now asking for a full trade embargo with Russia. Every dollar that will be going to Russia right now will be used for one single purpose of killing Ukrainians. That is the only thing they are doing. And that is why a full trade embargo is the only way forward. And I know there is some progress in that area in the US. I was appalled yesterday. I read a proposal by the European Commission where they were saying that they will consider phasing out Russian gas and oil. And I'm sorry, but phasing out doesn't work for us.
That's not going to work.
That's not going to work. Exactly. Because I did this terrible calculation is that, well, if they phase out for 1 year and we are losing 4 children's lives in a day, well, do the math. How many lives, how many killings of Ukrainian people will that sponsor in Russia if Europeans continue to buy their gas and oil? So we are fighting for the whole Western civilization right now. And hearing from the Europeans right now that, oh, we don't know where we shall get gas in the next winter is just unacceptable. Sorry, that's not what the West civilization is about. It should be about respect for human life and human decency. And we should stay united here. So full-scale sanctions is number one. And anyone listening to this, if you feel this pain for the Ukrainian people and you want to support, call your senator, call your congresswoman or man, and ask them to support this.
Yes.
Second are personal sanctions. Again, it's just unacceptable that people who are directly involved in these atrocities against Ukrainian people are still allowed to hold United States visas. They are still allowed to enter European Union. Their children are still studying in the United Kingdom. They should all be denied their visas. They should go back to Mother Russia, which they claim to love so much. Right. And if they have, if some Russian politicians who voted for this war against us, their children are all studying on the West, their children should go back home to Mother Russia and tell their moms and dads, hey, mom, dad, my life has changed because of the decision you made. Right. So this is what needs to be done. This is what we're asking for as well. And then the third thing, and I know it's a big debate, but I just want it to be not so difficult, is a no-fly zone. Because the worst things that the Russians are doing to us are those bombs falling on our heads. Right. There is no way to protect anyone from that. It's just random and it's so scary. You don't know whether you will be the next. And just living in this tension is impossible. So we're asking for a no-fly zone. And we do believe that we have the right for that. Because let me remind all the listeners that in 1994, Ukraine was a nuclear weapon state. We voluntarily gave that up.
Yes.
In exchange for assurances of our security from the West, including the United States.
You were guaranteed protection for giving up after Russia fell after Soviet Union fell in 91, 92. In 94, you gave that up voluntarily with the understanding that, and people, I'm saying this as an American on this side because what Ian is telling you is the absolute truth. It's not anything else. This is truth. They gave up nuclear arms.
But right now, like even if you say that you can't provide for no-fly zone by yourselves, at least give us those fighter jets. Ukrainian pilots are amazing. They're doing such a great job. I think they have destroyed over 50 Russian planes as of today. Mm-hmm. And then the same number of helicopters. So they're doing a really great job. They just need more aviation to be able to do it faster, to be able to cover bigger areas. So at least the fighter jets and at least the air defense system, so that we can see better where the missiles are being, aiming at. Right. So those are the minimal things that we are asking for. And we really believe that we have the right to ask those because we didn't do anything to provoke this war. We are in our right to ask for support from the whole Western civilization. And it's just, I'm sorry, but for me, it pains so much to see that the West is not reacting fast enough. I'm representing an opposition party in the Ukrainian Parliament. And we were always like the most liberal, the most pro-European, pro-American party in the whole Ukrainian Parliament. The majority of our MPs did their studies abroad. I got masters from Sweden. I was a Fulbright scholar at UC Berkeley in 2019. I just got back in 2019 from California. I was always a big fan. I was always saying that this is the civilization we belong to. But now this civilization is saying like, oh, wait, hold a second. We got some thinking to do. While the thinking is being done, our children are being killed from air by Russian bastards. That is what needs to be understood. There is no time to wait.
Right. When you said that, it just made me think of something, and I'm just going to kind of veer off for a minute here, just a little bit, because my mind is going to the kids, the children of this atrocity. And I know this is probably a little too soon, but I am positive in what I do in dealing with addiction and dealing with trauma with people. I can foresee once this madness ends for you, I am just hoping and praying that your country puts something into place in order to deal with these kids and the trauma that they went through during this, because that trauma can lead to substance abuse beyond anybody's comprehension. And and again, I just hope that there's going to be something put in place for that. And again, not only for the kids, but for teenagers, for adults as well, because we all have a tendency to, especially in a situation like this, I can only imagine how much somebody would want to hide from this, and not only physically, but mentally, the memories of what they saw, what they've been through, what they've experienced can be so traumatic that we don't want to cause more problems. These are the things that people like Putin don't understand and don't get. They're causing more damage than just for the immediate.
Oh, yes. I think Putin knows what he's doing. I think he's aware he's doing this to generations of kids.
Yeah, well, it's you are absolutely right. I try not to think too much about the future because we don't know what the next day brings us. But so it's like that. I used to be the first deputy minister of education and science in Ukraine in 2014, 2016. I teach in the university for more than 10 years. So I'm kind of from the education policy background. And given that, of course, I care a lot about the education of our kids. Our kids are not getting any education right now. I think some schools restarted some online classes, but the children are just so traumatized, and they are all over the world. They are also scared. And again, I'm just talking about kids who got evacuated and they're just living in different areas right now. But those kids still sitting in shelters right now. Right. I can't imagine what sort of trauma is that for them. I can't imagine how difficult that is for them. And I can't imagine also the parents of the children who lost who were killed by Russians. That is immense trauma. We shall definitely, that's the generational loss. So we shall have to deal with that. And there were some efforts put in place since 2014, because of course we are at war from 2014. And from that time, people we did have many veterans coming back from the war in Donbass. We shall have 10 times more than that, but 100 times more actually than that. Now, but there were some efforts put in place in terms of providing some mental health and mental support. There are I've seen some lines where you can call right now, talk to professionals like psychologists to relieve some of your pain and some stress. But of course, we can't do much of that right now because the efforts are really in kicking them out of our country. That is the biggest effort. But you're absolutely right that this will not end with the end of war. Right. This will continue. I know that because my dad is a war veteran. He served in Afghanistan in this nonsensical war that the Soviet Union launched. So my dad didn't have a choice. He was drafted and he was sent to Afghanistan. And he never talked about that up until very, very recently, that he started talking about that, because that was such a traumatic experience for him. Sure. And of course, in the Soviet times, he didn't get any mental health or support or anything. So I am fully aware of that just based on my family story. I know I did see my boyfriend coming back from the war before, and I saw how traumatic that was for him as well. So I do understand fully that we shall have to deal with that. That will be huge and traumatic and difficult. I'm afraid people will be afraid of just loud sounds or anything like that. But again, we shall have to deal with that after we kick them out of our country.
And you will. You will.
Well, with your help.
I have two questions before I turn it over to Flint to say so long for now, and please stay safe. Please. Here are my two questions. One, if you can't answer it for safety protocols, I totally get it. But as a parliament, are you able to have the conversations that leaders need to have behind the scenes? Do you still have that ability?
We are in touch with many MPs. So the political party I belong to has a small group in the parliament. We're 20 people, but our chat is extremely intense, and different MPs are doing different things. We actually had a Zoom call yesterday evening, just checking up on who's doing what, who can be of help, and so on. So there are some MPs who are doing work internationally, both the interviews and then some on the diplomatic front. There are many MPs who are involved in different types of humanitarian aid and relief, and they're doing that. Then there are some people who got back to the army, like my best friend in the parliament, Roman Kostenko. He was with the special forces before, and he rejoined the special forces, and he's now fighting on the south. And from time to time, he would just send us the videos of like, hey, I'm blowing up this bridge. Just look at that. That's yeah, and I'm sitting next to him in the parliament, so I will have to be really nice to him once we get back, because I've seen what he can do.
For a while.
But he's great. He's a great warrior, and I'm so much used to seeing him in a suit, but now he's in his special forces uniform, and he's fighting. And several other MPs are doing the same, and it's the same for other political parties. And actually, MPs who are engaged in same kind of work, like I am mostly engaged in international work right now. We do have joint chat rooms with all MPs from all the parties who are working in that direction.
Good.
So that is the how we coordinate right now. It doesn't matter now which political party we belong to. Like if those are the people who work internationally, we have a chat, we coordinate our messages, we coordinate what we do. We let each other know, like, we got the progress here, this is what I've heard, and so on and so forth. This is actually amazing. This is the level of unity I haven't seen in Ukraine, well, ever, frankly speaking.
Well, that's beautiful to hear. My second question, before I turn it over to you, Flint, to say our so longs, is because we're going to get inundated with people, how can I help? And we talked a little bit before we started recording this. We want to make sure that it gets to where it needs to go and not some fake agency that will never give the Ukrainians the support. What do you suggest that Americans do right now in terms of the individual? You mentioned talk to their representatives. I say scream at them, but that's okay. What can they do to help people live in Ukraine?
So if you are willing to donate, there are several opportunities how you can do that. The probably most transparent way to do that is simply to donate to the official governmental accounts. The National Bank of Ukraine opened the accounts. You can either donate to support the Ukrainian army, that's one account, and then there is another account for humanitarian aid and relief. Those are the official accounts opened by the Ukrainian government. I shall be happy to provide you so that you can share that with people willing to donate. There are several organizations that are trustworthy and who are helping to get different types of either humanitarian aid or some sort of support to the military. Of course, they cannot be buying weapons, but they're buying protective gear, they're buying the vests and so on and so forth. There are many local initiatives actually, but there are also several big organizations that you can donate to. So it's, but actually what needs to be understood, and that is about this level of democracy in Ukraine that Putin could never understand, is that it's actually extremely decentralized. So I have, so there are several big organizations. I will provide the numbers for those. But then, like, if you hear of someone like a friend of mine is gathering money, and this is someone that you know well, it can still be very safe to donate. Because I have, for the first 10 days of the war, I was staying in a house with friends in Kyiv, and there were other like friends of friends. It's very complicated, but they were actually my former students, and they were lawyers students. So they, like 10 days before the day before the war, they were working like boring corporate law stuff, but now they started transporting different protective gear for the soldiers from the West, and they are doing that not because someone is asking them to do, but just because they knew someone who can help. And now they have this whole scale, like Europe-wide operation where, like, oh, we have this guy in Estonia, and this guy is buying vests, and this guy can provide medicine, and so on and so forth. It's so decentralized. It's amazing. I just was looking at them and thinking, like, 10 days ago, they didn't know nothing about that. But now they have like whole trucks being traveling to Ukraine. So it can still be safe. So you can just double check if you know someone from Ukraine and diaspora, they should know someone who can be of help. But I will provide you with the accounts for big organizations, so that you can feel safe that those money will go to the to the right purpose, or the governmental accounts, which you can also use, that the government will be using to help us.
Well, thank you, and we could talk later via email and such. And thank you for that. So we'll get that out there. Flint, before I turn it over to you, you are you're probably not going to like me saying this, but you're a hero. You are. There's somebody who's going to listen to your message and get active. And it's communication. And I love how you mentioned you're decentralized. I believe that decentralization, for me, this is my politics now, helps create a movement and or help react, because you're not being told what to do. You're being told, here's the situation, can you help? And that's what you're doing today from the basement outside of Kyiv, and just trying to stay safe. You're a politician, you're a mom, you're a humanitarian, and I'm proud to have spoken to you this way, and hopefully we'll speak again. Flint, I turn it over to you.
Yeah, I am sitting here just in amazement of you even being on with us, because there is so much more to be done there, and I can't thank you enough for joining us. Our hearts do go out to you, and yes, I have now met a hero, like Darren says, and please, that is a true word. Look, we need more people like you all over the world. We really do, and you are somebody that I admire. And I just met you. And like I said, I can't imagine what you and your countrymen are going through right now. But keep it up. I mean, you can't stop, obviously. And we're not going to let this jackass Putin win this thing. Okay, we're just, and I could say some other words about him too. But we just can't allow this to happen. Now we can't allow it to happen in the future. Our hearts go out to you. We are praying for you. We are going to do whatever we can here at Don't Hide the Scars to get this message out and to get you some support. Again, thank you for your time today, and God bless you.
Thank you for listening to this and for the kind words. I do believe the true heroes are now on the front line, but I'm speaking here to tell about their heroism to the whole world. Thank you so much for listening.